Hello and Happy New Year, Happy 2018. I hope you all had a really good Christmas if you had one, or Hanukkah, or whatever else you may have celebrated around this time, and a good New Year's. And today I'm going to talk about a lot of the books that I read in 2017. Instead of just doing like a straight up, these are my favorite books of the year, I'm going to do like little different categories. First I'm going to show you 6 or 7 books that I really liked this year. Some that really surprised me. Sorry, I'm looking down because they're on the floor. Some that just like mean a lot to me, but I'm not going to put on like my favorite books of the year. And then I will go into my favorite books, and of my favorite books I'm also going to have 2 authors of the year, because there's a couple authors that I read multiple books from in the same year, and I usually don't do that. I don't know why. I just don't. So that's how it's going to be set up. There's a new looking location because I got this beautiful reading chair from my parents for Christmas and I'm obsessed with it. I'm always just sitting here now. So I thought I should add it in because that was my present, and it's book related because I read everything in here now. One other thing before I jump into it is that I don't think I'm going to give synopses of these books. I'm just gonna say why I felt the way I did about them and why they mean a lot and why I'm mentioning them in this video. But if you are interested in specific plot details, do go to Goodreads and type the title of the books into the search bar and you'll give a really good synopsis, better than what I could give you right now. So let's start with, I guess, honorable mentions, or ones that I just want to talk about but I'm not going to locate. But I'm not going to label them as my favorite books, which will come in the second half of the video. So first book I'm going to mention, instead of grab it from the ground, is The Twelfth Night by Shakespeare. This is a play written by William Shakespeare. I read this in high school and I liked it in high school, but reading it again really reminded me how much I really do love Shakespeare. I'm an English major, by the way, for those of you who don't know. So I just love reading literary texts and I love annotating. I annotate a lot. So I just had a really fun time reading this for the second time, and it's reminded me how much I like Shakespeare, and in 2018 I definitely want to read more, especially because I discovered these Penguin editions that are absolutely beautiful. So I have a few other plays on my radar that I would like to read next. So I just really enjoyed reading this again. I'm glad I did for this class. I could have totally just not read it because I read it before, but I went with it. And it was a really fun experience. This next book I was really surprised by because at first when it was announced I didn't really want to read it because I thought I was like past the age where I would enjoy this author. Then I got a copy sent to me and I was like, you know what, let's go for it. And I really enjoyed it. It was Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I really enjoyed it. I think his writing has improved. He worked on this book for 4 or 5 years, and I think you can really tell the quality of his writing has gone up. I think that the way he constructs characters and plot is definitely a lot better than it used to be. I really like seeing authors as they develop as writers. I think that's really cool to see when you read authors as their books come out in real time. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I have a full review written on my blog, which I'll link below if you want to hear more, but this really surprised me and I'm really happy I read it. Next is I don't remember how I got interested in this person. I think my uncle talked about her a couple times, but she became kind of like a staple of 2017. That is Joan Didion, and I read The Year of Magical Thinking, which is a memoir about her husband basically dropping dead at the kitchen table. He has a I don't remember exactly what happened to him, but one of those like heart things or brain things where things just like shut off and you die real fast, which is absolutely terrifying. And it follows the year after he dies and just kind of follows her process with grief and grieving, and it's incredible. She's such an incredible writer. If you don't know, Joan Didion was a very famous and successful journalist, as well as fiction writer, as well as non-fiction writer. She has so much stuff out there, and I've read a lot of her essays this year. My friend Paige also loves her, and I sent her a collection of her essays to Paige for her birthday, and we've talked about Joan a lot, and there's a new documentary about her on Netflix that I still have to read. I mean, to watch. I still have to watch it. But this was incredible. She's an incredible writer, and I have more of her stuff on my TBR for 2018, and I'm really excited to read those, and I'm really happy that I found Joan this year. The next book I want to mention is one of the last books I read in 2017, and that is The Chalk Man by C.J. Tudor. This comes out in January, this month now. But this is like a mystery thriller. Like, kids died, or people died in this small town, and then later people try to figure out who did it and why and whatever. And I've never been interested in like mystery books before of like a whodunit. I haven't really read those, but the blurb or some review I'd seen before I got this unsolicited in the mail was that it's for fans of Stranger Things, and like one of the best things that happened to me in 2017 was watching Stranger Things. I watched season 1 and 2 two times already. I miss it. I honestly really want to watch it again. But this takes place half in the 1980s and then half modern day, following one guy named Eddie and how these weird events of his past, of like finding a chopped up body in the forest near their house, or weird things happen in their town, how it affected them like when they were kids, and then like how it all started creeping up when he was in his 40s. And it was really, really, really good. I had so much fun reading it, trying to think of who done it, trying to figure out what the heck was going on. I really liked how it was written. I thought it was super exciting. This is C.J. Tudor's debut novel, which is kind of disappointing because it's really good, first of all, and second because I want to read more by her. I'm just really interested in exploring this genre more, which I think would be really fun to do in 2018. Also, anything set in the 80s with a group of like nerdy white boys is my favorite trope. I am a sucker for that, which is exactly what this is. So I really like this a whole lot. Like, not enough that I would say it's like a favorite, but I really, really enjoyed it, and I really want to explore this genre more this year. Next is a book I got from Book of the Month, actually next to our Book of the Month books. This one is Sing Unburied Sing by Jessamine Ward. I initially was not planning on reading this because, I don't know, I just have so many other things I want to read. I got this in the mail. I posted the photos of the Book of the Months because I help announce them each month, like the picks, but I wasn't necessarily interested in this until I heard that she won the National Book Award, and then also someone I follow on Instagram named Simone, her username is Simone in her books. I love her. I think her posts are great, her recommendations are great. She posted an Instagram story about this and said that it was like incredible, and she said it was so good, and she was just kind of like in shock about how good it was, and I was like, well, alright, I'll read it. So I picked it up, and it really, really surprised me. Again, it's not the genre I thought it was. It's more of like, I thought that this was like a contemporary fiction piece, literary fiction, about a boy who has a black mother and a white father, and he lives with his black grandfather, and how, as like a coming of age type thing, figuring out who he is while having like a black and a white father figures in his life as he is mixed race, and how that was gonna like affect him. But that's like kind of not at all what it's about. It's, I don't want to spoil it, but it's about motherhood. It's a lot about motherhood. It is about being a man a little bit. That's not the central theme though. A lot of it's about home. A lot of it's about ancestry and history. And there's like magical realism elements in it that I was like not expecting. And when they first showed up, I was like, is this real, or is it just gonna be like some sort of metaphor? It's about death and life, and it's written beautifully. I think she's a great writer and definitely deserved that National Book Award, and I was just really pleased with myself that I read this because it wasn't on my list of things to read, but I'm really, really happy that I did. And it's another one that surprised me, and like it wasn't the genre I thought it was going to be, and like it's one that I think I'm going to think about a lot, like I already have been. You know what was the most fascinating thing about this book? The life of the main character is just so different from mine. It's like, not like opposite, I don't know what opposite of my life would be, but it's just so far away from what mine is, like that was the most interesting thing about it, was reading about this kind of dynamic that definitely exists in the world. You know, it's this absent mother who does a lot of drugs, and the father's in jail, and he takes care of his baby sister, and his baby sister thinks more of him as a parent and doesn't want to be with their mom. She'd rather be with JoJo, and it's just this whole fascinating just life experience that I had known nothing about and have no experience with at all, personally or in any kind of like literature. So it was really cool to read about that sort of life experience that I've never read about before. So, yes. And the last one in this just like honorable mention section, ugh, I should have left my books on the floor, is another book of the month and another magical realism actually, and that's Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. This is a very soft science fiction, very soft magical realism. It's kind of commentary on the whole refugee crisis we're having right now in the world, of people from very violent areas, politically dangerous, politically tumultuous, trying to find safe places to go and how hard that is. But again, this is something that was very different from anything I've read before, and I'm really fascinated by the genre of magical realism, so I'm happy I read these 2 magical realism books this year. And again, I would like to read more magical realism. I have a young adult one on my TBR. I have one, Isabel Allende, on my TBR, which I'm super excited to read. So again, I love that this was really different from anything I'd read before. I thought it was very beautiful written. I thought it was a beautiful story about refugees and just life and living and love. And I thought it was really very, very good. And again, something that I'm really happy that I read and picked up. But now, as those being ones that I just really wanted to talk about, here are the books that I consider my favorites of the year. And I'm going to save one for the very last because I think this year I might actually have a favorite. Other years I haven't picked like a one favorite, but this year I think I'm going to have to pick a one favorite. So, starting my favorites list, none of these are in any sort of order besides the last one I'm going to talk about. This one, the rest of these just no order. The first book I want to talk about on my favorites of 2017 is The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. I read this because I saw the trailer for the movie coming out, which came out this past year, and I loved the trailer, and I knew it was a book, so I went to Half Price Books, and I bought it, and I read it, and it's just so incredible. It's a memoir about growing up with parents that are neglective but still loving, with siblings who have to raise each other up and raise each other, how you get out of bad situations, and the way she writes I think is just so beautiful, and this just really, really, really impacted me. A lot of the things I read this year I think have to do with this theme of, or not theme, but something that I just noticed a lot in a lot of the books I read this year, and I don't know if it's just that I picked a lot of books like this, or if it's that I'm growing older, so I think about things differently, and this is something that I am personally really interested in and struggling with right now, is just how complicated people are, and how complicated every single relationship is that you have, Nothing is black and white. No one is ever very right or very wrong, or always right or always wrong, and in one situation, in one conflict, there are right parts and right sides and wrong sides and good and bad, and it's just nothing's black and white, and everything is so gray, and there's so many shades of gray, and that's just something I've been thinking about a lot as a person, I think, and a lot of the books I read this year reflected that, and this one definitely did, especially with Jeanette's relationship with her parents, because they were neglectful. They wouldn't work. They lived in really, really bad living situations. They would move a lot. They never had a real education at school. This is something I think about a lot, and it really impacted me, and it really followed that weird theme, because it's not a theme, but that weird just idea I've been thinking about a lot, about how everything and everyone is complicated, and that's just so hard to decide what to do when relationships get hard, stuff like that. This was really a big part of all that stuff I'm thinking about. And I just absolutely love this, and I thought that the movie adaptation was also incredible. I love the movie. So if you read this book and you liked it and you haven't seen the movie because you weren't sure if you'd like it, definitely see it, because I think it was incredible, personally. The next one of my favorites of this past year was The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. This took me a long time to read because it was the last book of the summer, and then classes started and I didn't finish it until a whole month later, but that just did not impact how I felt about it at all. First of all, Sylvia Plath, beautiful, beautiful writer. This is all about mental illness and when it just hits you and you don't know what to do about it, and you don't know, you feel very alone when you're mentally ill, especially when you just realize that something's wrong and that something's different. And the way she writes about how she felt just like sometimes I would have to put the book down because I could relate to a lot of the stuff she was talking about, as someone who has struggled and currently still does struggle with different mental illnesses. So this really was very personally special, and something else I think about a lot, and something I think I'll definitely go back and read again, and just read my different, you know, little marks and annotations, because again, that's what I do. I circle and I write, and I am very supportive of the idea of writing in your books. Crack the spine, get a pen out, circle the stuff that means a lot to you. And this book means a lot to me. This next favorite is the first book I read in 2017, which is funny. If you still remember the first book you read of the year, it was probably a favorite. So that is Good Morning Midnight by Lily Brooks Dalton. This is another soft sci-fi. I just recently talked about this in a recommendations video. My favorite thing about this book is the structure of it. It's about two very different points of isolation, one in space and one in Earth, and how it switches between those 2 points of view. And just like 2 points of isolation, one in space and one on Earth. I think that that is just genius to connect and put together, first of all. And it's just, you work towards an ending, and you don't know if it's going to be a resolution, but it definitely will be a conclusion, you know? Those are two very different things. This is another debut novel, and I'm really upset about that because I really want to read more by her. She has a memoir, but I'm honestly not interested in it. I just want to read more fiction by her. And, oh, I said it's a soft sci-fi because the perspective from space is a crew coming back from one of the gas giants, and we currently cannot send people that far. So that's the science fiction part of it. And I just thought it was beautifully written. It's a beautiful story about hope and life and just people and human connection. And even though it's about the Antarctica wasteland and the middle of space, it's still about human connections. And it's just really engaging, and there's a couple parts where they do like spacewalks that are so intense, it freaked me out. But this also really reminded me of Station 11, which is one of my favorite books of 2015. So if you like Station 11, you should definitely read this. Or if you just like being a person, you should read this book. Now this book on my favorites list is definitely the most surprising book that ended up being a favorite. I got the book in the mail unsolicitedly, and I read the synopsis, and I was like, ugh, sounds like some cheesy romance. And I usually don't read books that are just like straight up only romance. Like that's the only plot idea throughout the book that didn't make sense. I usually don't read those, but I wanted to read the first line, because I always do that when I get a book. I read the first line, and suddenly I was 50 pages in, and I was like, what just happened to time and space? And that book is The Light We Lost by Jill Santopolo. My god, this is about, wow. See? Okay, I don't know what to say about this book, because it's sad, and it's heartbreaking, and again, it's about life, and how it's just hard. And it's hard for everybody, and all situations are difficult and complicated, and people are so complicated, and kind of like how you plan for your life to be a certain way, and you want to be a certain way, and it's 15 years, 20 years later, and you're suddenly like, shit, this isn't what I wanted, or this did not go the way I thought it would, or I didn't fight for it to go the way I wanted it to go. Oh man. And it's about relationships and so much about love. And a lot of it's also about marriage and motherhood. The main character is a woman, and it's from her first person's perspective, and it's a lot about getting married, and how she wants to be a mother, the way in which she would want to be a mother versus how her husband expects her to be a mother, and how she's very, very scared of getting trapped in something, which is something I worry about and think about a lot as well. And I really appreciated that aspect of it, how, you know, you can have kids and still feel like, oh my god, is this what I want? Which is terrifying to think that that could happen to you or any of your parents. But people are complicated, you know? Oh my god. And this, I think, is just, there's something so captivating about how she writes. There's something that just would suck me in, and I would honestly like lose track of space and time when I read this. When I would like pull myself out after reading 100 pages and be like, I need to take a break, I I would feel kind of like groggy, you know, like waking up from a nap and not knowing what day it is. That's how it felt when I would have to put this down. There was something, I can't pinpoint like a sentence or like a passage to show you like her writing style. I don't know how she does it. It's just something about her specifically. It's just Jill Santopolo magic or something. Just that everything is so vivid. I feel like I'm in New York when she talks about New York. I feel like I'm in Tel Aviv. I feel like I am in the bedroom when she and her boyfriend or she and her husband are having an argument. It's just so vivid and so captivating. So captivating. And it made me feel a lot, and I'm gonna think about this for probably the rest of my life as I grow to be her age. And it just, like the front looks cheesy, right? And then the caption says 2 lives, 1 loves, 1 choice. That sounds like a cheesy romance, but it's not. It's so deep, and it's so heartfelt and thoughtful and heartbreaking and complicated. Everything is so complicated. But yeah, this is incredible. So we're down to the wire here. I have my 2 authors of the year and then my favorite book. So, no, authors of the year, one is not better than the other. I'm just stating 2 authors that I read multiple works of from this year. And the first author I'd like to talk about is Adam Silvera. This year I read History Is All You Left Me, and they both die at the end. This was one of the first books, maybe the first book I read, and this was the last book I read. Both are incredible. Adam Silvera is my favorite young adult writer right now. I don't read a lot of young adult anymore. As you can tell, there is only one other YA book in this stack, but I love everything he does. They're all about relationships and connections, and he really makes me feel things. And I find him doing things and talking about things that are not talked about as well or at all or as well in other young adult novels. This is about so much about grief and about forgiveness and about when do you forgive somebody, when should you or should you not, how important are our relationships, how much should you protect yourself, but so much about grief and moving past grief, and or more of writing it out. And it made me feel a lot of things, and I think about this one a lot. And this one I'm still thinking about, and I still want to cry about all the time. They both die at the end. It's about living. It's about dying, but it's mostly about living. And it's about living while you're alive and not holding back. And that sounds like, you know, it's a really I don't want to say it's cliched, but it's a theme, it's a topic that's been talked about a lot in literature. But I think he does it super, super, super well. All of his books are like a soft sci-fi. Actually, I don't think this one is soft sci-fi. His first one, which I liked, More Happy Than Not, is a soft one, but this is soft sci-fi. But he talks about, you know, the whole idea of don't hold back, like be yourself and live your life and make choices that make you happy, or else someday, suddenly, you're gonna be dying, you're gonna think, oh my god, I just didn't live while I was alive. And again, it sounds cliche, but I don't want to call it cliche, because he does it so well. I think that, and the way that he constructs his stories are so smart. He's a little literary too, which is kind of cool, seeing someone in young adult who has a bit more of like a literary approach to how they construct their stories, because a lot of young adult is very straightforward, I feel. But these are 2 favorites of the year, definitely, and he's also one of my authors of the year. And this was my most anticipated book, definitely, and it definitely delivered. And I will be impatiently waiting for his next books. I will always pick them up and read them right away. He is a genius, I think, personally. My other author of the year is the lovely, wonderful, beautiful, and the late Carrie Fisher. I read 3 Carrie Fisher books this year, and 2016 I read 1. And this year I read 3. And my favorite of the 3, and which is also a favorite of the year, is Postcards from the Edge. First of all, Wishful Drinking and Shockaholic are memoirs where she talks about her life, short little stories about growing up and her adulthood, and what does she call it? Something like her so-called adulthood. And these are good. I enjoy them because it's her, and I love Carrie Fisher. Look, I have a Star Wars thing right there. If you know me, you know that I love Carrie Fisher, and I miss her very much. And I think she's just so funny. And I love the way she talks so openly about mental illness, or I love the way that she did talk so openly about mental illness, and about how she's like, hey, she said, if my life isn't funny, then it's just true, and I won't accept that. That's one of her quotes, is something like that, where she just has to laugh. She just had to laugh at her life and what it was like, because if she didn't, she would just be completely depressed forever. She wouldn't be able to do anything. So I really like that approach. I think that's just great, and I just adore her. Postcards from the Edge is actually a fiction novel that I loved. Her fiction writing is actually, I think, so much better than her nonfiction writing. Like, I really enjoyed these, but this was so good. It's kind of autobiographical. There's this starlet who's very famous, and then she has to go to rehab, and then it's about how she deals with that. And it's a dual point of view with another guy who went to rehab for, like, coke addiction. And it's so funny, and she's trying to figure out what to do when she gets out. How should I act still? And again, it's about the complicated nature of just human life. And man, I loved it so much. And it's something definitely I want to read again. Oh, there's a sequel called, I don't remember what it's called, but I'm going to read it in 2018. I have to. It's funny, and it talks about just being a person, and what do you want to do with your life, and feeling like you're not doing what you want to, or feeling like you're not doing what you should be doing, or what's everyone else doing, what should I do, and just difficult stuff like that. Like, that sounds like very simple questions, but they're not simple questions. And again, she's dealing with, like, how to move on with her life and continue living after she was in rehab, and she's famous. Everyone knows she was in rehab. And it's funny, and it's just has so many good moments that you're just like, oh yeah. There's so many moments where she says something and you're like, you know, about life, and something that's, like, not profound, but just really nice, and a thought that is packaged very well, and you're just like, ah, yes, Carrie, that's exactly how I feel, or that's what I was looking for, you know? Stuff like that. So Carrie's one of my authors of the year, because I adore her, and I really enjoyed all of these books, but Postcards from the Edge is my favorite. And finally, my favorite book of 2017 was The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. I have tried to talk about this before, and it's so hard because I don't know how to get my thoughts out correctly. This is one of the most beautifully written books, most geniusly written books. It's about 1 year of life. This girl, she's 13 or 14. She lives in a house on Mango Street, and it's about her experiences. And it's so heartbreaking, and also it's about so many different things. It's about feeling trapped, it's about being a woman, it's about heartbreak and the opposite of heartbreak, and sexual assault, and what it's like being a woman and walking down a street, about the sexualization of young girls, which is so gross, and but mostly it's just about growing up and how it's scary and it's hard, and there's so many moments when you're a kid that take your innocence away, and it's about those moments that take her innocence away, and it's really sad, but it happens to all of us, and it's we don't realize when it's happening to us, you know, and neither does Esperanza, the main character, but we can see them because, you know, it's written so that we can see those moments. So we see when she has, like, her innocence taken away in multiple ways, and in a very literal sense too, of what you would think of as your innocence taken away, having sex, but actually it's not sex. But it's it's one of those books where I don't know how to talk about it. It's, again, it's so so heavily marked up because it's just the most beautiful book. It's just one of the most beautifully written books I've ever read, and it means so much to me, and it's something that I will pick up and I'll just go through and look at the different quotes that I underlined and the different things that I wrote and I connected to, and I would love to just do a whole reread maybe in another year with a different copy and just like do different annotations, and maybe I'll get a different colored pen and I'll annotate again and just see how it means to me, like what stands out to me each year or like every few years. I really like doing stuff like that. Man, it's just so beautiful and impacted me so much this year, and definitely something I'll keep thinking about. And Sandra Cisneros is just one of my favorite people now. I have her her memoir that I want to read this year, but this is my book of the year. Like, is that enough to tell you that you should read it and that it's incredible? Is that it's my book of the year, and I've never had a book of the year before because I just don't know how to talk about it. But guys, it's insane how good this book is. Really is. So there you have it. That is my 2017 year in review. Oh, there were no books that I hated this year. There are no books I read that I disliked, or no books that I read and I finished and I was like, didn't gain anything from that, you know? Like, every book I read, I gained something important from. And that's all I can ask for a reading year. I'm not going to tell you how many books I read. I don't know the exact number, actually. I can't remember. No statistics. This is all that matters. Right here. Ugh. This is what matters to me. That all of these books I love and meant a lot, and I gained something important from every book that I read this year, and I hope to do the same in 2018. Let me know what your favorite reads of 2017 were. Let me know if you read these thoughts, the whole, usual spiel, and I'll see you eventually. Bye.